My old collective tried to hijack my solo show. Then my ex-leader, Phoenix, emailed the gallery pretending to be my rep. Weeks earlier, he put my name next to snacks on a whiteboard. In my own loft, I threw them out. Every last one. I stood outside the loft, keys in one hand, a takeout coffee in the other. The building was quiet, early morning quiet. No neighbors, no traffic, just that hum of stillness that makes you feel like the whole city's asleep except for you. This was supposed to be my fresh start. My name is Kasha Walker. I'm 34 years old. I live in Milwaukee now, though I grew up just outside Madison. After years of bouncing from sublets to shared studios, I finally had a space that was mine. No roommates, no borrowed paint buckets or cigarette ash in the sink. Just me, my work, and 400 square feet of light-drenched possibility. The loft was in a converted warehouse. High ceilings, exposed beams, enough windows to flood the whole place with morning sun. I had spent months renovating it. Custom shelving, reclaimed wood for the flooring, a skylight over the drafting table. Everything was clean, minimalist, intentional. I had just set my keys down on the kitchen island when the doorbell buzzed. First, I thought it was a delivery, maybe the new easel from Utrecht. But when I opened the door, it was Phoenix, then Sienna, then Jules, and behind them 2 more. People I hadn't seen in over a year. Not since the collective disbanded. "Oh my God, Cass," Phoenix said, arms open like we were about to recreate some nostalgic movie scene. "You really did it. This place is unreal." Before I could say anything, they were already walking in, laughing, looking around like it was their name on the lease. Jules set down a duffel bag near the back wall. "I'll take this corner. It's got the best light for portraits." Sienna pulled a speaker out of her backpack and plugged it in. "This is exactly what we need," she said, grinning like a kid in a candy store. "It's like a return to our roots, you know?" I just stood there, my coffee still in my hand, still warm. "Wait," I said. "What's going on?" Phoenix gave me that look, the same one he used to give when someone in the group questioned his ideas. Half patronizing, half performative patience. "We were talking last week," he said, "and we all agreed it's time to get back to basics. We're bringing the collective back." "No one told me," I said. Sienna waved a hand like that was a minor detail. "We figured you'd be thrilled. I mean, come on, this place is perfect, like built for collaboration." They started unloading gear, tripods, canvases, a literal typewriter. Jules already had a sketchbook open and was asking where he could tape up some butcher paper. I wanted to say no. I really did. But then Phoenix looked at me and said, "It's just for a night, Cass. Chill. We'll crash here and get out of your hair in the morning." That old version of me, the girl who shared crusty futons and split rent 4 ways while covering everyone else's groceries, she flinched. I felt her still breathing inside me. She remembered the nights we painted until 3 in the morning. The way we'd sleep on the floor because we were too broke for mattresses. She remembered the way Phoenix talked about the movement, how we were more than artists, we were family. So I nodded. Fine. One night. But I already knew that was a lie, because the moment they started picking rooms like they had a right to, I felt the ground shift beneath me. My keys were still on the counter, and suddenly I didn't feel like the owner of anything. The next morning I woke up to music. Not just music, bass. Heavy, repetitive, obnoxious bass that rattled the cheap glass in the kitchen cabinets. For a second I thought I was dreaming. Then I opened my eyes and realized I couldn't even see the floor next to my bed. It was covered in someone else's clothes, a paint-splattered jacket, and what looked like a half-finished canvas propped against the wall. I sat up. My bedroom door, which I had closed the night before, was now wide open. Sienna was in the kitchen frying eggs like she'd lived there for years. Jules was shirtless, pacing the hallway and talking on speakerphone to someone about grant deadlines. And Phoenix had claimed the entire living room, rearranged the furniture, and set up a projector like he was about to host a TED Talk. "Morning, Cass," he called out without even looking up. "Don't worry, I made coffee." Sort of. I stepped over a pile of sleeping bags and what I prayed was just laundry. The place looked like a squat house. Art supplies everywhere. Tripods blocking the hallway. Someone's dog, I didn't even know whose, was sniffing around my work table like it belonged to him. "You didn't think you'd use all this space alone, did you?" Phoenix said, finally looking at me. He laughed like it was the most ridiculous thing in the world. "Come on, Cass. This loft is alive now." "Phoenix," I said slowly, "you said one night." He looked up from his sketchpad, unfazed. "One night to stay, yeah. But the energy's flowing. This is what the space wants, you know? It wants community, creation, not just sterile minimalism." I turned to Sienna. "Where are the guest sheets I had folded?" She shrugged. "Use them for the dog bed. He sheds a lot." I wanted to scream. Instead, I pulled my hoodie tighter around me and tried to breathe. By noon, they had turned my studio into a damn co-op. Jules had hung 3 of his old oil portraits on the east wall with tacks. Sienna was live streaming from the window seat, giving a tour of the revival loft. People in the comments were calling it gritty and raw and totally Brooklyn meets Midwest. Phoenix found a roll of masking tape and was blocking off my master bedroom. "Wait, what are you doing?" I asked. He didn't even pause. We're turning this into the communal workspace. Best light, clean energy, central vibes. You've already got a mattress out in the corner, it's fine. That's my bedroom, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I sleep there. You can still sleep there, he said, like I was being difficult. We just need to work in there during the day. It wasn't a question. It was a decree. I opened my mouth to argue, but then Sienna chimed in from the other side of the room. It's not like we're asking for much, Cass. You always said this work was about all of us, that we were a unit. Jules added, you wouldn't even have this place if we hadn't gotten through those years together. I stared at them. The words hit harder than I expected, and that's when the memories came rushing back. Those freezing winters in the warehouse with no heat, selling zines at farmers markets to make rent. All those nights I stayed up working while Phoenix got high and waxed poetic about revolutions. I was the one who negotiated the rent, who maxed out my credit cards for shared canvases, who fed people with my literal last paycheck. I carried them, but now they were using that same pass like a chain around my neck. You're being really intense, Phoenix said softly, like he was trying to soothe a child. This isn't about taking anything from you. It's about giving back to the spirit of the collective. That line, spirit of the collective, I had heard it too many times before. It was code for, we're going to do what we want and make you feel bad for resisting. I swallowed hard and walked into the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the closed toilet lid and stared at the tile I had personally laid down 6 weeks ago. White with pale gray grout, clean lines, quiet, mine, except it wasn't anymore. Because the minute I stepped out of that room, I knew I wouldn't be walking back into my home. I'd be stepping into theirs. I lasted another 2 days. 2 days of waking up to strangers on my floor, music shaking the drywall and paint stains spreading across every surface I'd tried so hard to keep clean. I didn't even know half the people who came in and out anymore. One girl, maybe 20, had set up a beating station in my kitchen and offered me a collab opportunity when I asked her to move her stuff. By the second night, I found Jules asleep on my yoga mat, using my denim jacket as a pillow. My mattress, the one I had dragged up 3 flights of stairs by myself, was covered in paper clippings and spray paint fumes. I slept in the storage alcove, curled up in a ball between stacked canvases and an unopened box of tile sealant. The morning of the 3rd day I snapped. Phoenix had moved a whiteboard into the living room. Daily vision check-ins, he explained, as if he was running a startup instead of squatting in someone else's home. He had written a list of tasks. Convert bedroom to studio. Tasha, source coffee and snacks. Sienna, update Insta/collective page. Everyone, intention setting before lunch. My name, next to snacks, in my own loft. I stood in front of that whiteboard, still holding the mug I hadn't had time to fill. My hands were shaking, maybe from rage, maybe from the silence I'd swallowed for too long. Phoenix, I said quietly, we need to talk. He turned around slowly like he already knew what was coming. Of course, is this about the bedroom? Because I think. No, I said louder this time. It's about all of it. You can't stay here. Any of you. You need to leave. The room fell quiet. Jules looked up from his laptop. Sienna froze mid-scroll. Someone I didn't recognize dropped a paintbrush into a mason jar and backed toward the door like a kid caught sneaking out. Phoenix stared at me for a second like I had spoken in a foreign language. You're kidding. I'm not. He laughed, but it was sharp, forced. Kasha, come on. You're not serious. This is your ego talking. No, I said, my voice cold. This is my home talking. And my home wants you gone. There was a long pause. Then Sienna stood up, her mouth tight. Wow. I guess it's true what they say. Success really does change people. You think this is about success? I asked. It's about respect. Something none of you have shown me. You think you got here alone? Jules asked, standing now. We all sacrificed for each other back then. You owe this life to the foundation we built. I carried that foundation, I shot back. You think I don't remember? I was the one paying our rent while you painted on the walls and called it visionary. I was the one who fed you, who fought the landlord, who cleaned up every mess you left behind. Phoenix stepped forward, voice low and trembling with theatrical hurt. We were a family. You don't turn your back on family just because things get uncomfortable. You didn't get uncomfortable, I said. You got entitled. He opened his mouth to argue, but I raised a hand. I said you could stay one night. It's been 3. You moved your lives in without permission and tried to turn my space into your stage. He looked at the others as if trying to rally them. Are we really going to let her erase everything we built together? Get out, I said. You don't mean that, he replied, his voice suddenly small. I walked to the front door and opened it wide. I absolutely do. They moved slowly like they were waiting for someone else to intervene. But no one did. One by one, they picked up their bags, their supplies, their delusions. Phoenix was the last to leave. He turned in the doorway, eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. You just threw away your roots for a bigger paycheck. I didn't answer. I just shut the door in his face. And then the text started. Cass, this is so unlike you. We're worried. You really need to get back in touch with your core. The capitalist stuff is clouding your vision. This is betrayal. Art used to mean something to you. They came in bursts. Long paragraphs, poetic rants, old photos sent with captions like, when we were still real. Jules wrote a 4-part group message titled On Creative Abandonment. Sienna sent a voice memo that was just her crying. I muted the group chat, then blocked them all. That night, I sat on my bed, mattress reclaimed, door locked, silence restored, and let the tears come. I wasn't crying for them. I was crying for the version of me that had once needed them, who mistook noise for community, chaos for passion, and guilt for love. Now I had space, but it wasn't peace yet. It was just the aftermath of a storm I never wanted to call down, but had no choice but to weather. It had been a week, 7 full days of quiet, finally uninterrupted by shouted debates over the ethics of gallery representation, or the smell of Sienna's turmeric incense that clung to every corner. I had almost started to believe it was over, that they had accepted it. Then came the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was a Saturday morning. I had just sat down with a sketch pad and a lukewarm mug of instant coffee when I heard it, a light, almost polite tapping on the door. I didn't want to answer it, but something told me I should. When I opened it, Phoenix stood there. Behind him, Jules, Sienna, and one of the newer girls, the one with the beating station. Phoenix was holding a small tray. Vegan pastries, he said, like he was announcing an award. From that place you used to love on Lincoln. Jules stepped forward, holding up what looked like a hand-bound poetry zine. We made this. Collective writings. Memories. Sienna motioned toward the back wall. We finished the mural we talked about that one time. You can have it. We won't sign it or anything. They stood there like bad actors in an apology scene. Eyes wide, postures rehearsed. We just wanted to reconnect, Phoenix said, soft and slow. No pressure. No baggage. Just, co-create again. Like before. I didn't move. I didn't invite them in. You tried to steal my sanctuary, I said. Phoenix's smile didn't even flicker. We didn't steal. We reclaimed. There's a difference. I stared at him stunned. You walked into my home uninvited, rearranged my life, and then gaslit me for not being open to it. That's not reclaiming. That's violating. Sienna folded her arms. We built you. We're the reason anyone knows your name. Maybe I said, but I'm the reason I'm still here. Phoenix's tone changed. He shifted from charming to wounded, the way he always did when the manipulation needed a softer touch. We were your only family, Cass. You can't throw that away over a little misstep. A misstep, I repeated, is forgetting someone's birthday, not moving into their house and trying to erase their boundaries. You think the art world cares about your precious boundaries? Jules muttered. I turned to him. I don't care what the art world thinks. I care what I think. And for once I'm finally listening to myself. They all fell quiet. Phoenix took a step forward, holding out the tray like a peace offering. Just one pastry. Talk to us. I looked at the tray. Neatly arranged croissants and vegan scones dusted with powdered sugar. All sweet, all hollow. No, I said, and stepped back inside. I shut the door before anyone could say another word. They stood outside for another 10 minutes. I saw them through the peephole, gesturing, arguing in whispers. Eventually they left the tray on the mat, along with the zine and a rolled-up scroll of canvas. I tossed the pastries in the trash. Didn't even take a bite. That night I unrolled the canvas. It was a mural swirling colors, half-formed faces, a spiral of pastels and fingerprints. There, in the bottom corner, someone had written in gold ink, "Roots don't forget where they came from." I stared at it for a long time, not because it meant anything, but because it didn't. It was another way to say, you owe us. They wanted me to believe that walking away from them meant walking away from my own history, that without them I was ungrateful. Ungrateful for the years I spent carrying them, paying for them, hiding their dysfunction behind the word collective. But I wasn't ungrateful. I was finished. I rolled the mural back up and shoved it into the closet, not because I wanted to keep it, but because I wanted to remind myself, this is what it looks like when they come bearing gifts. The next morning, I finally bought the studio door lock I had been putting off. The keypad entry system clicked into place with a satisfying beep. 6 digits. My digits. Mine. Let them romanticize the past. I was too busy building a future. It happened on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of organizing sample frames for my upcoming solo show when my gallery partner, Lena, forwarded me an email with no subject line and just 2 words in the body. Thoughts. The thread underneath it made my blood run cold. Someone claiming to be my artistic representative had contacted the gallery earlier that morning. The message was professional on the surface, but the language was unmistakable. Too grand, too theatrical. Kasha Walker's voice belongs to the people, and as such we're proposing a shift from the originally scheduled solo exhibition to a more expansive collective format that better reflects her roots. We envision a reemergence, a celebration of shared history, shared labor and shared light. At the bottom, Phoenix Adler, creative manager. I sat down hard on the stool. Lena had added a quick note under the forwarded message. Wasn't sure if this was something you authorized? Seemed off. Off didn't begin to cover it. Phoenix had tried to hijack my show. My name. My work. My goddamn identity. My hands were still shaking when I called Lena. This is fraud, I said flatly. He's not my representative. He never was. Didn't think so, she said. His vibe was cult leader adjacent. He's trying to sabotage me, I said. Do you want me to respond? No, I said. I want a lawyer. I hung up and dialed my Naomi Glass, the same attorney I had used when I trademarked my brand, Kasha Constructs. She picked up after one ring. Kasha, Phoenix tried to steal my show. There was a pause. Then, tell me everything. Within an hour, Naomi had filed cease and desist letters. She drafted notices barring Phoenix and anyone affiliated with his collective from communicating with the gallery, the sponsors, or anyone listed on my promotional materials. She had me forward all the texts, emails, and screenshots I had saved, including the mural, the group chat monologues, and that ridiculous vegan pastry stunt. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't doubt myself. I didn't try to rationalize it, or smooth it over with nostalgic memories, or wonder if I was being too harsh. I was angry, pure, undiluted, righteous rage. Not the kind that explodes, the kind that simmers, that burns clean. That night, I combed through every file on my laptop and backed up my portfolios on a separate drive. I changed my passwords. I removed Phoenix's name from the project credits on my website, even the early ones, the ones I used to keep out of guilt. I wrote a new artist statement and added a disclaimer about unauthorized representation. And when I finished, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and stared at the city lights without blinking, because something had shifted. Before, when they violated my space, I felt invaded, shaken. I still let them talk to me like I owed them something. I still heard their words in my head. But this wasn't just an intrusion. It was theft. They weren't just trying to ride my success. They were trying to rewrite it, own it, attach themselves like vines to something I had built with my bare hands, and then claim they had been part of the foundation. But I wasn't theirs anymore. I never had been. That part was the lie. The next morning, Naomi called to tell me the letters had been received. If he responds, let me know. But honestly, Kasha, I think he'll go quiet once he sees you're not bluffing. He won't, I said. But I'll be ready. She paused. You sound different. I looked around my loft mind still and nodded. I am. 2 days after we sent the cease and desist, I posted a statement. Just a few lines. No names, no rage. Just the truth. Imagine building your legacy from scratch, only to watch your past try to rewrite it. This space, this work, it's mine. And it always was. I put it on my website, my professional Instagram, and a pinned tweet that ended up going semi-viral. Nothing flashy. No drama. Just clarity. Within hours, the responses poured in. Colleagues, gallery owners, art bloggers, old professors, even a few collectors who had been quiet for months, all reached out. My inbox filled with words I hadn't realized I needed to hear. Proud of you. Saw what they tried, not surprised you handled it with class. You're the real deal, Kasha. Always have been. My site traffic tripled. The show pre-orders went up. My voice, once swallowed by their noise, had finally become the loudest thing in the room. The collective didn't respond publicly, but I could see the ripple effect. People unfollowed them in droves. A local blog that once praised Phoenix's vision quietly removed his interview from their archives. One of their members, the girl with the beads, posted a vague story about reevaluating community dynamics and toxic leadership dressed in creative language. And then late one night, I got a DM from an old member I hadn't heard from in years. It just said, "You did the right thing. Wish I had done it sooner." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because it wasn't about them anymore. Not the old crew, not the people who called themselves family only when they needed rent money or a platform. They were unraveling now, a tangle of mismatched ideals and bitter egos. The curtain had dropped. And behind it, just people playing roles. That's when the message came in. Phoenix, you'll regret this. No one makes it alone. That was it. No hello. No explanation. Just a threat wrapped in philosophy. The same passive-aggressive poison he'd always laced his words with. I didn't even open it fully. Just took a screenshot, archived it, and blocked him. Again. Then I stood up, walked over to the north wall of my loft, the one that had been blank since the day I moved in, and finally called Mason, the muralist I'd been following for months. Kasha, he answered. Didn't expect to hear from you this late. I'm ready, I said. Let's start that commission. He didn't need to ask which one. We talked about it once in passing, back when I first bought the space. What should I call it? He asked. I looked at the wall, the place where everything had started to shift. Reclamation, I said. Call it Reclamation. He showed up 3 days later with ladders, chalk lines, and a bold first draft. By the following week, the colors stretched across the bricks in sweeping strokes, hard lines, soft gradients, and a single phrase etched into the corner. Built alone, claimed alone. Enough. Every morning I drank my coffee in front of it, and I didn't think about them. Not once. It was almost summer by the time I heard from Phoenix again. 3 months of silence. 3 months of gallery buzz, press interviews, and commissions stacked back to back. The solo show had sold out. I'd booked 2 more before the paint from Reclamation was even dry. My loft, once crowded with noise and freeloaders, had become what I always imagined. Clean, quiet, mine. Then one evening I opened my inbox and saw it. A message with no subject line, no capital letters, just, "Hey, it's Phoenix. I'm in town. Any chance I could crash for a bit? Just until the next residency comes through. Nothing long. Hope you're well." For a second, I just stared at it. I wasn't surprised. I had been waiting for this. It always ended this way with people like him. Not with accountability, not with closure, but with need. Me dressed up like friendship. Manipulation softened by lowercase letters in faux humility. I didn't respond right away. I walked to the window, let the breeze in, and made myself a cup of tea. Rooftop blend, lemon balm, a hint of lavender. I'd grown it myself. 10 minutes later, I replied, "You'll figure it out." That was it. I didn't ask how he was. I didn't ask about the residency, or where he was staying, or what happened to the collective. I already knew. Because after Phoenix came Jules, then Sienna, then the beating girl whose name I never did learn. They each reached out with their own versions of the same message. "Kasha, we messed up. Can we talk? Just for a few days. I'm in between places. I'm not asking for much. Do you still have the couch? It's just me this time. The others don't even know I'm reaching out. Things fell apart. You were always the glue. Please." One by one I blocked them. No rage. No long explanations. Just quiet, steady closure. And then I did something I hadn't done in years. I went up to the rooftop. The garden had started to bloom again. The lavender was pushing through the railing, the tomato vines curling toward the sun. I sat on a bench I'd sanded myself, sipping tea, watching the city below flicker with life. There was no music playing. No one shouting about vision or energy or the movement. Just me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next crisis or apology or betrayal. I didn't feel like someone's benefactor or background or afterthought. I felt still. I felt sovereign. And as the sun set, all gold and rust and pink smears over the skyline, I leaned back, took another sip, and smiled to myself. I was finally free.